Do I feel like I'm going to hell for being gay? Let me answer the question behind your question, which is how do I reconcile being gay and Muslim? This is a question I've avoided answering for a very long time, not because I don't have conviction in my answer or I don't believe it, but just because faith is so personal for every person. So, an answer or reasoning that might work for me might not resonate for other people. And I'm not an imam, I'm not issuing a fatwa. Like, this is just my own experience. But if my reasoning can help one person during Ramadan get closer to Islam or not leave Islam, then I'm willing to share it. So, how do I reconcile being gay and Muslim? Let's get into it. For starters, I wish there was just one easy answer I could give you, right? Like some kind of hidden verse or hadith I found that undoes all the logics and arguments that we hear, and that's not the case. Rather, it was a series of experiences built up throughout my life where I was able to come to a conclusion quite firmly that I love being Muslim. I accept being Muslim. I also accept that I'm gay, and I don't see conflict between the two in a way that a lot of other people see. Now, there's so many different arguments we've heard, right? We've heard that this is not something that's explicitly forbidden in Islam. We've heard the arguments that the story of Lot was misconstrued, that it was about inhospitability towards guests versus how other people interpret it. I'm going to throw all that out the window because, again, I'm not a scholar. That's not up for me to interpret. I'm going based off of my personal opinion. The way I was able to reconcile the two things is that it came down to what kept me as a Muslim versus what was driving me away from Islam. There was a period in my life where I believed that by being gay, I was inherently sinful. Like just by virtue of being gay, my life was a sin. And when I had that frame of thinking, I was the most depressed I had ever been. I had zero will to live. And I was the furthest from Islam I had also ever been. I was as close to leaving Islam as you can possibly be without actually leaving Islam. I would still pray 5 times a day, but the only reason I did that was on the off chance that I was wrong. I didn't want to get in trouble. So there was still that like tiny morsel of fear of God in me. But outside of that, everything else, I was just like, this is BS. Like, what kind of God would create a human in a way that I had no control over how I was born, and I'm just at fault to begin with, right? Through no control of my own. That just logic did not make any sense to me. Especially, it seemed incredibly contrary to everything we learn about Allah, right? Someone who's incredibly merciful, incredibly forgiving, all knowing, who does things with great thought and intentionality that we ourselves could never comprehend, right? So in 2016, I had the opportunity to go to Umrah. And I was so afraid to go on the pilgrimage because that was the point in my life when I was the furthest from Islam I had ever been. And I kept on scratching my head, right? Because in Islam, it said that you don't go to Umrah, Allah invites you, right? The opportunity like came to me. My family was going, and they're like, well, you're going too. And I just thought of the irony of like, how is it that the point in my life when I'm furthest from God, when I'm literally the angriest at God, right? Like I was angry at God. Why is this my life? Why did you create me this way? That's the time that God invites me to go do Umrah, like the most sacred form of worship in Islam imaginable. Like the irony of that didn't make sense to me. I felt like God is playing some kind of trick on me. And so I begrudgingly went, right? I went on Umrah and I'm just like, look, I'm going to go. I'm being invited clearly for some purpose that is beyond my understanding. I'm going to make of it what it is. I'm not going to have any sort of agenda, and whatever happens, happens. I was afraid, and my fear was what if I go there and I don't feel anything? Would that kind of somehow validate and confirm for me that this whole Islam thing was just not working out? That was my biggest fear. And I wasn't going to force myself to feel anything either, right? So I'm doing Umrah. The first few days go by, whatever. Obviously, it was emotional, but like I wasn't forcing any kind of emotion. I was just kind of going through the motions. And towards the end of the trip, I had an opportunity to kind of go to the Kaaba by myself and do this kind of one on one conversation with God. And I was so grateful to God for the kind of life I had lived and every way the way everything had turned out, right? There's nothing I couldn't feel gratitude for. But the one kind of wall I kept on hitting was I could not find myself to be grateful for God making me gay. Like the logic of it just did not make sense. I was like, why would you do this to me? This is so incredibly unfair. Like, you make me be born gay. I have no choice in this. And you create me in an environment, in a world where I'm so incredibly ostracized from both the Muslim and the non Muslim community. There's no clear literature or kind of framework within the religion for how someone like myself should navigate. Like, this is so incredibly unfair. And it was making me so upset. And the light bulb moment happened then when I realized that me standing there, having that experience and deep conversation with God was because I was gay. And I thought if I had been born straight, I don't know for sure, but I don't think I would be having as deep of a conversation or emotional connection with God in that moment. I often look at my straight counterparts and see how, in some ways, life is so easy for them, right? There's a religious and social framework that's laid out for them, from marriage to courtship to engaging in relationships, right? The whole thing is laid out from A to Z. They just need to follow the step by step instructions and they're good to go. And for us as queer Muslims, there's so much introspection and analysis and navigation that we have to do, and reconciliation with our faith, that I feel like straight Muslims just never have to do. And in that moment, I realized that by being gay, I felt like I was a stronger Muslim because I was more actively trying to determine what Islam meant to me, what being a Muslim meant to me, and if I wanted to follow that path at all or not. And if I could narrow it down to just one thing for you, it would be, so often as queer Muslims, we're trying to look at Islam and we're looking for it to give us some kind of answer or framework about navigating being Muslim, right? And the question I would pose to you is, what does Islam owe you? Right? This is a religion that you might have been born into or came across. And if you are Muslim, you are choosing to follow it, right? And you have the choice to not follow it. And consequently, instead of asking, is there room for me in Islam? I would rather ask you to turn around and ask yourself, is there room for Islam in me? And for me personally, the answer was yes.